What the fuck? Jess, did you have plastic surgery done? Can you give me your best impression here? Anything. Tell me it's going to be a bloodbath. I'm lost. Welcome to the Horror Rumble. Apparently, Jess is having some sort of mic difficulties.
What happened?
Apparently not.
Is everything? Is my mic? Is my mic on?
Your mic's working now.
Is this cool? You can see me? Am I okay?
Yeah, you're good.
Kind of blacked out there for a second. Let's just peek at the chat. We got Cliff Booth. Scary. And Orc. Hello, guys. Thanks for coming by.
Guys.
And yeah, we're here at the Horror Rumble again.
I didn't know if we were going to make it.
I really didn't either. It's been a busy, rough couple of months, really.
Yeah.
You know, when you first told me about this, I thought we were doing a different movie. Like way back when you first said, "Hey, I want to do this series." And I thought we were doing Species.
No.
But we're not.
No.
We're not doing Species. Just want to clear that up. We're doing
Subspecies.
Okay. Well, this is your cup of tea. I'm here for the trumpets.
But before we get into this, you want to go ahead and bring on our guest and
yeah. From Flesh Wound Features, a man who needs no introduction, but let's introduce him anyway. Dan Schein.
What's up, guys?
How you doing, Dan?
I'm doing well. Apparently, Dracula loves his vampire brides every time of the month.
Oh, my.
How are you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Jess seems to fluctuate between himself and having blackouts.
There you go.
I don't get it, but
I mean,
hey, it works.
I guess this has been normal at times in my life. I don't know.
Andy Dick bit him at the urinal, and he's never been the
same. Andy Dick pulling a Bill Cosby on me.
It's not so much the fang marks in the neck; it's the pain in my ass. Sorry, not too classy to start this off, but
that's
you're perfectly
the Horror
fine.
Rumble. I don't know if we shine with class here at the Horror Rumble. See, I can't even say anything eloquently.
Good picks tonight, though. Interested to talk about it.
Well, it's definitely something different. I think, at least as far as the horror community, this I'm sure has a following, especially with full moon people. But this was my first watch, so we'll get that out of the way right away. I've never seen any of these of the franchise until this past month, and I watched all 6 movies.
Let's keep in mind too that Full Moon is known more for like Puppet Master and like the doing stuff with like smaller things or whatever, and like this is actually classic horror.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and Full Moon had only really been a thing for a couple of years at this point because, you know, they made that switch from Empire in '89. But yeah, I mean, I guess if you take all of their movies together, it is somewhat atypical, but it kind of fits in there with movies they did like Meridian, which is a fantastic full moon movie, or Pit and the Pendulum, which some people consider their best. So yeah, yeah, I'm eager to talk about it. I'm surprised. Why did it take you this long, Jess? Because I think you had saw the Puppet Masters way back. What?
Oh yeah, I definitely saw the Puppet Masters way back in the '90s, at least the first three.
Mm-hmm.
Full Moon, it was kind of hit or miss. I don't know if I just never stumbled upon them. They didn't appeal to me. That I don't know, because I like vampires.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe my local mom and pop video stores didn't have these in the forefront, which I'd be surprised because we had tons of full moon stuff. Tons. I don't know, just never did. Or if for some reason I did, didn't remember it all, but I'm pretty sure I didn't. Cliff Booth. But I guess we'll see what I thought of them as we go along. Kory, do you want to?
Well, let's start off with the first one, Subspecies.
1991.
Yep, 91.
If you want to build a fucking vampire that looks scary, this is the vampire you build. I mean, you take the long fingers from Nosferatu and you give him fucking crazy ass hair and just the whole look that Radu has. And Jess, for the record, it is Radu, not Radu.
Well, I thought this story was about the brothers Prego and Ragu.
No.
You know where that name does come from, though? Vlad the Impaler historically had a brother named Radu the Handsome, ironically, and that's kind of where they got Radu from.
I was not aware of that.
Yeah, so it's got some
Sided with
vampire
the
lore
Turks,
there.
I believe.
That's cool. That's actually interesting.
There's a few interesting Vlad the Impaler movies. Some only lightly touch upon the vampire stuff. Others, more historical, and they kind of leave like a little wink nod. Maybe there was something more going on. But there is Vlad the Impaler with Billy Zane. There's also that USA TV movie where Rudolph Martin actually plays Dracula, who also played Dracula in that famous Buffy episode. And that's another one to look into. I think from 2000, if you're curious. But this isn't Dracula. This is Subspecies.
But more of a relation than I would have ever thought. If you're going by what you just told me with Dracula's brother. And I know they don't go into that, but.
Can one of you guys help me out here real quick? Who was the original actress that played Michelle in the first Subspecies?
Laura Tate was in the first film before Denise Duff took over.
I have no clue. For some reason with this series, like the guy that they got to play Stefan and Laura Tate both remind me of I could swear I've seen them in something else, but I couldn't tell you what it was. It could have been a soap opera when I was a kid and my mom was watching, or I don't know. But I will say, I mean, and I'm not saying anything bad about Denise Duff. I think she does a really good job playing Michelle. I think Laura Tate played the part well, but I just didn't like the way she looked. And then when they did get Denise Duff in part 2, she was perfect for it. So
she definitely was. I mean, Denise Duff. Of course, she had more movies to establish the character, so maybe not a fair comparison. But she had really good chemistry with Honest Hove. And yeah, and you mentioned soaps. Honest Hove actually was, I can't remember which soap it was, Days of Our Lives or something. One of the big ones he had a recurring role on before Subspecies. So I think there's a couple soap actors that had runs in the series, which Subspecies was a big deal because they shot it in Romania. It was the first film. I don't know if there's any dispute over that, but it's usually billed as the first film to shoot there after the fall of communism in the country. In fact, there was a lot of weirdness that went on set because, you know, you still have certain remnants and everything, but they had basically free reign of a lot of really beautiful locations. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, I'm sure, because
that's definitely in my notes, the
Yeah.
the locations, and then what I assume are sets, you know, within some of the rooms. I could be wrong, but the sets are fabulous too. The locations on the outside and sets inside.
Yeah, there was a lot of just on location stuff, and that's why I always feared Subspecies 5 because, you know, the budgets start to go way down because it's a long running franchise, and I never thought they could pull it off again. And you know, we'll talk about that as we go along. But yeah, no, the first one, this is kind of that period where Full Moon is still establishing a tone. Obviously, Puppet Master was a massive hit for them. At this point, and I don't know if I know anybody who saw Subspecies in a theater, but I know the first one at least had something of a theatrical release. I would assume very limited, small, but
maybe a few theaters.
Yeah, maybe a few major locations. But
hi, Zombie.
Hey, Zombie, how's it going? But even this still has that recurring theme of the tiny terrors that Full Moon is known for, with the subspecies of the title, who are not really that important. I mean, it's just kind of a side element and way to bring Radu back for sequel after sequel. But actually, initially, it was live actors that played the subspecies, and it just did not come out very good. So they decided to do it through, I believe the effects guy was David Allen, and he did stop motion, which is sorely missed today, and rod puppets. So that's how we got those unique effects, which some people may say are dated, but I think they're a lot of fun.
I didn't think they are on my first run through. Again, that's it. A lot of this you're saying is in my notes. The special effects stop motion was really good in this, I thought.
Well,
and maybe others put it down, but
the initial, like that first actual scene where you see the subspecies characters or little whatever demon things. Actually, if you that first scene that they're in, it looks like shit, but it's like everything after that looks fine.
Well, I was gonna say, when the opening has a very 90s direct-to-video look, and I was gonna say that's not necessarily a bad thing, but then right away it's almost like it looks super professional as you get into the movie.
Yeah,
it doesn't necessarily even look direct-to-video once the movie gets going. So I thought that the look of it, like we said, the locations and sets. And then, of course, I was surprised I saw Angus Scrimm on the opening credits. And then this cast later, as Kory was talking, the girl was replaced, but you got the same guy playing Radu. I said it right.
This time, yes.
It's Full Moon I see in the credits, which I was pretty sure, but I wasn't 100% sure until I started watching, and I was like, oh, Full Moon, okay. This makes sense. The makeup effects. The vampire looks like, going back to what Kory said, it's got like the perfect mix of classic vampires and a little bit of modernization for the time, and it works. It works really well. Does daylight affect them in this first movie? I was a little confused on that.
I think it's more they can't be in direct sunlight.
Okay.
I think it's
which I later kind of get.
It sounds a
confusing.
little like a little bit of a cop out, but I think like if it's overcast, they're okay. But
it definitely fucks them up as we go along, as you know, having just watched the movies. Yeah, no, the look for Radu is just so iconic. He's one of the scarier looking vampires, and it was interesting because, of course, Ted Nicolau, who directed them all, he at first Honest Hove was a little difficult, and he liked to drink. He loved his vodka, and he did not get along with his makeup person. That was, that's a really rough one to clash with because they're touching you all the time. I mean, they're like literally right there in your face. So it wasn't an easy shoot, but I've always loved these because, I mean, 90s at this point, you're not really known for gothic horror. Gothic horror was about as dead as it's ever been in the 90s. So it was an atypical thing to rent at the video store, and I always really appreciated it. I'm a huge fan of this franchise, and be interesting to see what your favorite ones are.
And hello, Chris. And I'm so glad you can make it then tonight, being a fan, because it is, I must say, hard finding even people within the horror community that know this franchise.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them surprisingly hadn't seen any of them, or they've maybe heard of it or seen one or two. But to truly know it and be a fan, glad you're here. And then Chris, of course, Slasher Home Video, welcome. I don't know where Kory just went. But my final thoughts on this first one, it dragged a little in a few spots for me, but I still thought it was a very good vampire movie, and I think any fan of vampires should definitely see this film. That's not a stretch.
Oh, for sure.
And any horror fan, I think, will enjoy it for what it is. I mean, I think if I would have caught this at a different time, if it wasn't, as Kory put it when we were talking, if it wasn't homework for me, I think I would have even enjoyed this more. If I caught this on a Saturday night, there was nothing else on, and this was playing, I might have been totally just blown away by it or had a blast with it. But still a good movie. I'm not going to watch it every year, but if somebody wanted to watch this, or we had, 5 or 10 years, I could watch it again. And honestly, even if we had a group that said, oh, I want to watch Subspecies, I definitely wouldn't turn it down.
Yeah. Also, Angus Scrimm. He had a thing for vampires at this point because he had Subspecies. He was also in the Roger Corman film adaptation of Vampirella. So it's kind of his in between the Phantasm movies. That's because he didn't do a lot, unfortunately, but he was very good here in his small role.
Well, it definitely was. And don't they bring his character back, but it's a different actor later on?
Yeah, Angus doesn't.
Way later. Ben Grimm, oh my gosh. And he says he's not a fan of vampire movies, but he's seen the last of this franchise, the newest one.
Modern vampire movies are usually more miss than hit for me. These were interesting because they are kind of a throwback, although there is gore that wouldn't have been present, obviously, in the old Gothic vampire movies. But it did feel like kind of a throwback in the 90s. Full Moon in general in the 90s was, including the late 90s, where a lot of people feel that they started to decline after the Paramount relationship was over. They were doing a lot of unique stuff in that era of Scream. For those of us like me who weren't as enthusiastic, you were getting stuff like The Creeps, or which Phil Fondacaro played a tiny Dracula, or Hideous, or Blood Dolls, which I'm really excited for that Blu-ray coming out.
I was in the Scream craze at that time in the late 90s horror.
Yeah, most people were. I'm not in the majority there, but that was the nice thing about Full Moon, though. They just had all sorts of just wonderfully weird shit for us to enjoy at the video store.
Well, Jess, you said that these were all first-time watches for you
They were.
recently. And Dan, you said that you would go and rent these at the video store.
Oh, yeah.
I actually, and this is going to sound fucked up because I love these movies, but I had actually rented a Puppet Master movie and seen the trailer for Subspecies 4. And that is what got me interested. So I ended up going out and ordering, and this is a little beat up, but the Subspecies box set that has the first 4 Subspecies movies and the Vampire Journals.
Nice. The Kangaroo video release, which is an interesting history all of its own. Yeah, I remember that set.
But that was actually the first time I actually got to sit down and watch all of these. So
Bordello of Blood is great. I'm sorry, Chad.
Bordello of Blood is great.
And Vampire Diaries, I never watched. In fact, I was going to make a joke later when we get to Vampire Journals about Vampire Diaries. But Twilight next month. Ben Grimm, I know you're a fan.
Oh, okay.
How many of those movies are there?
5.
Something like that. Yeah.
All right.
You can't sigh. After what I've had to watch recently within the last 6 months, I had to watch all the Hellraisers, which I had never seen all of them.
Hey, there's
And
some
then
good Hellraiser movies.
This series of 6 movies. I think I enjoyed this more than Hellraiser doing this one, but it's homework when it's a new franchise for you and you're like, oh, I have to watch these movies now. But yeah. Final thoughts. If Jake joins us, he can catch up on part 1.
Love the first Subspecies movie. It's, I mean, if you can watch this first one and get through some of the questionable look at the beginning of the movie and just
it doesn't even look that bad once
know.
the movie goes. It's
once you get past that initial scene with the subspecies demon things,
and I didn't even think that was that bad.
But yeah, this first one is just awesome. I love it.
This first one's my favorite in the ones we've talked about so far. So let's see if it stays that way. All right. Well, I guess we will go on to
Subspecies 2.
Bloodstone.
I think it's funny that every subtitle for all the sequels is blood something. So,
yeah.
It's blood.
And we'll get into it, but isn't part 4, isn't that have a separate title? We'll get
I think that's a 2B thing.
That's just a 2B thing.
Full Moon also released a lot of truncated clip show things where they take pieces of movies, and it's a little confusing, but
they did that with Ginger Dead Man as well.
Subspecies 4.
The true name is Bloodstorm, right?
Yeah,
but on 2B it's called The Awakening.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah,
but back to Bloodstone, Subspecies 2.
Well, Subspecies, for the most part, the Subspecies movies are all centered around a particular artifact or whatever object called the Bloodstone. And I don't know, Dan, help me out here.
Yeah, the blood of saints that drips from it, and it gives you ultimate power as we go on into the series. Healing properties. There's a character that comes along, the doctor in the third film, I believe, who thinks it can cure him.
Fourth film.
Fourth film, yeah. And yeah, it's sort of the ultimate thing that Radu covets. And I think with Bloodstone Subspecies 2, there were a lot of things where they were kind of coming into their own. I have trouble sometimes because I think 2's just about on par with the original one. I definitely preferred Denise stuff. I think nothing against Laura Tate. I think she did a fine job, but I think Denise had a lot of chemistry with Radu, and it just I don't know, something about it. The other thing in general with this film and really the whole franchise, I like that it shouldn't feel good to be a vampire. Like, it really should suck, and they take the curse out of it a lot, in my opinion, with stuff like Twilight, where it's like, okay, you sparkle in the sun and you live forever.
Save it for next month.
You look perfect. I don't know. I just never liked taking the curse out of it. Even films like I, Frankenstein, which is more of an action film, really, but it's like, okay, you're Aaron fucking Eckhart. You got a scar on your face. Big fucking deal. This doesn't seem so bad. So yeah, in general, I like it that these vampires generally don't feel like they're living it up for the most part. We do get the urban vampires later, which we'll segue into, but I like that the curse is still very much present, and just the torture of being that kind of creature. And yeah, Bloodstone really kind of ups a lot of stuff. It's still a very gorgeous film, 93. So we still have pretty healthy budgets for Full Moon. As Chris was saying in the chat, a lot of the sets were just gorgeous at the time.
Gorgeous.
And they were gorgeous sets and on location. And this was another one too. I mean, it was shot back to back with 3, so you might expect that there would be that slow decrease and it would look cheaper. But 2 in a lot of ways is better. We're introduced to a lot of new characters. We've got Cersei, who they don't actually name her, I don't believe, until like 5, but Radu's mom.
They say her name once.
Yeah, they
and
might.
I think it's in 3 that they actually say her name.
Yeah,
the mummy.
Yeah,
mummy looking. Yeah,
looking lady. That makeup is great on that.
Oh, I thought you were making reference to the fact that Radu calls her mommy.
And that too. So I think that's why I wrote mummies.
She is one ugly looking bitch in that movie.
She is. Movies, whoever does the voice, and I feel like Full Moon has used her in a couple things, but that actress did a great job, and the makeup was great. So,
yeah, the makeup is always fantastic. Hey, Jessica.
Hello.
Yeah, and I mean, we really get to know a lot of characters. Melanie Shatner, who plays Rebecca, the sister, also daughter of William Shatner. She was always really, really memorable. And of course, Kevin Spiritus is Mel, who pops up later in a different role.
See, and once again, these are two actors that I swear I've seen on something else, and I just couldn't tell you what it was.
Yeah, I think Melanie was in a bunch of stuff. She was in, I think she was also one, I could be wrong because it's been a long time. I think she was in the Tech War adaptation series of William Shatner's novels. Could be mistaken. That's been a very long time. But yeah, in a lot of ways, this bigger, some would say better. It's at least on par with the first one. It's a damn good sequel.
I might disagree with that. Maybe a little more than slightly. It definitely is on par as far as the style, the look. I mean, these are all directed by Ted Nicolau,
yes.
Nicolau
wrote and directed by him.
And that's fabulous to have him through the whole the whole franchise. He does a great job. Like these first 3 movies kind of goes along with what you're saying, Dan. You said 2 and 3 were shot back to back. I mean, you could 1, 2, and 3 are pretty seamless as far as the looks and the feel of it.
Yeah, and 2 had that great like closing shot where Cersei, Radu's mom, drags Michelle into the cave, and it was just really well done. Yeah,
It was. I mean, again, good effects. His demon minions, Radu.
Prego will be in Subspecies 6.
He will. He's coming back. The brother.
Prego is coming back. Chef Boyardee for the big run in at the end.
So I just thought it moved a little slower than the first one, I guess is my biggest argument. Maybe that's, my short attention span. Because I really did like the first one more than I thought I would, sitting down with it. And then this one, it's not the worst one in the franchise to me, but I don't think I rank it that close to number 1. What was my other? The Sun Now Hurts, Ragu.
Yeah, well, it always did. It always did.
It seemed a little bit more clear in this one, or made more unclear to me.
Like I said,
the same lighting burnt him but it didn't in the last movie.
If it's overcast, I think they're okay. So
it's pushing it. It's pushing it. No, it's good. It's okay. It's another, again, if you enjoyed the first one, you definitely want to continue on the second one. The guy from Friday the 13th, Part 7, he's in this one. I think he's in at least one more. But he was good in it.
Yeah, it's the guy who plays Mel, right?
Kevin Spiritus.
Yeah.
Is that the guy? Okay.
So that's where I've seen him before. I could not think of.
I recognized right away. I was like, that guy's in Friday the 13th 7.
Yep, New Blood. Yeah, played Nick. I might be wrong on the character name.
I think Nick. That sounds right.
Yeah,
that sounds right. I don't have a lot more than that. I mean, it's okay enough.
I do enjoy, and I think it definitely comes into play, starting with the second one, the back and forth that Michelle goes through, where she's asking her sister for help, and then she tells her sister to go away. It's almost like you can actually see the struggle that she's going through, knowing that what she is or what she's been turned into. And I enjoyed that. It's not just, oh, okay, I'm a vampire now, so it's just this, and as opposed to having that back and forth where she doesn't want to be this and she wants help, but then having those moments of despair where she just, you can't help me, so go away.
Yeah, no, I agree. That, again, the knee stuff, when she comes in, that's kind of who you think of as Michelle. So I think that's part of why some put 2 over 1.
I personally, I kind of agree with Jess. There are some slower parts to part 2.
Yeah, but I agree.
But I think part 1 is definitely clearly the best overall movie.
Well, I so far.
Yeah, so far.
That couldn't change. It might not. Number 1 might be the best of them all once we get through it. We'll find out. Final thoughts on part 2, guys. We'll just keep it moving along while we have Dan. And
great sequel.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that brings us to, I think the subtitle comes after it, or the byline, or the sub. No, it doesn't. It's Bloodlust, Subspecies 3. You get that there? These posters some of them are pretty cool, especially these first 3.
Yeah, I have Ted sign the initial the first film for me. The
Awesome.
posters are always really cool in this franchise.
I personally think it's not something that you necessarily see a whole lot of, where you get the same guy writing and directing all of the movies in a franchise. So, but this one here, I 3 is probably my second favorite out of the entire franchise, but it has the best ending. And I will put it up against any ending to any vampire movie ever made.
You told me this, and I got to tell you, buddy, it's a crock of shit.
How is that a crock of shit?
It is a crock of shit. This is not the best ending in a vampire movie,
Oh,
and
I
you know damn
love
well
the ending.
It does not beat From Dusk Till Dawn. And I'd have to say, just from memory, there's probably even a Christopher Lee movie it doesn't beat an ending on.
No way.
Great ending for this part 3 of Subspecies.
Definitely a great ending.
Now I'm gonna have to skip ahead to my notes on that. I'll just say again,
No,
locations
go
are
at
great.
your own pace here, bud. But
No.
I'm just saying, this is the standout ending in this franchise and any vampire movie I've ever seen. I love this ending more than anything else.
Okay, so sunlight can kill him. There's another note on the sunlight. I got
pretty clear here. It does.
Since we're jumping to the ending is cool, but I am not gonna agree with that at all. That it's one of the best vampire movie ending ever, because it's not. It's a very Mortal Kombat fatality like ending. At least that's what I saw in it when I watched it.
But I don't know Mortal Kombat, but it was pretty cool.
Like modern.
No, yeah, I mean, I guess I get where you're going.
Video
it's a cool
game looking or anything, but like just see it, watch it, see if you agree with me.
Yeah, I love when Michelle betrays Radu and just chucks the bloodstone, and he proves that the sun does hurt him trying to retrieve it. But Radu doesn't go down easily. This is also the last movie that used the subspecies or the minions, whatever you want to call them, which they were initially, I don't know if I said this at the beginning, but they were leftovers from an unmade Empire film called The Subterraneans. So they were kind of essentially salvaged for subspecies.
Wouldn't have known that. Would you say this movie's now more popular than that one?
I mean, those creatures I guess make it a little more unique.
Did they redress the creatures at all?
Well, again, they had shot it with actual actors that they shrank, and I think it was like locals in Romania, and they were just kind of overacting, and it didn't look good. But I think they still blended some of that footage. I'm not familiar. You can look at some of the old video zones that I think we'll talk about that. I would imagine. I don't know if they. I know they talk about the Subterraneans a little bit, which, it just gave it a different element, I think, from other vampire movies. Radu, a character like that could just feel like, well, Dracula, among many other vampire type characters, but he kind of feels like his own thing. And the minions made him stand out. I think they were pretty cool for it.
They were cool.
Yeah.
Again, I don't have much deep to say about this, just more great makeup effects. The minions were cool. Old Ragu's at it again. Great special effects. And my best note for this, I guess, is I can see where this series could have a cult following for sure, especially with vampire fans. And I like the third one better than I did the second one.
Radu also chooses the pretty lady over mommy in this one too. So
I mean, I would hope so, or then we have a whole nother movie.
Yeah, Radu in therapy over the mom.
There was couple of small things I wanted to point out, and this actually just hit me, and it's for more for part 2, but the redesign of the Bloodstone, where they add the claw that's gripping the Bloodstone, when originally I think it was just like a gold or copper or some just regular metal base to it. And did anybody else notice that at the beginning of part 2, when Michelle wakes up, she's wearing a completely different dress than what she was wearing when Stefan put her in the casket?
I didn't notice that, but
She's
he could
wearing
have changed it. They could have changed it. Somebody could have, yeah.
Rod,
I don't know. I didn't notice.
Well, I just assumed it was because Denise Duff is more. How do I put this nicely? She's bigger in the chest than Laura Tate was, so
busty.
But yeah, and then Radu himself just looks more evil as the series goes on.
Yeah,
we talk about the different makeup effects for like Freddy Krueger and the different masks for Jason and Michael Myers, but I mean Radu actually, his look for the most part stays the same. He tends to look more demented or more demonic as the series goes on.
It's pretty consistent, yeah. Hi, Blu-rays.
Hello, Blu-rays.
And hello, Brian Trash.
Blu-rays. What up, Brian?
Hello, Brian.
Oh my goodness! In the chat, we have the steak sauce.
He didn't get past that hot tub scene, though.
Well, Steak's like me. You know, he would have been here, but he'd never seen these. He watched the Species movies instead. That was me in the 90s. I watched the Species movies.
You probably would enjoy these, Steak.
I think Steak would.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, if you like vampire steak, I think you would.
Yeah, I think 3 is also, again, really, really solid. It has that great ending. Lots of action in this one. It's a damn fine trilogy up to this point, but then we get Subspecies 4 Bloodstorm.
Yeah.
I do want to say that they could have ended
Vampire Journals. Sorry, I jumped.
Now hold on. Are we going on, or Kory? What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say they could have ended this after 3, and it would have made for one hell of a trilogy.
It would have been a solid trilogy for sure.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't have been sad about that. But are we ready? Came this next. It technically part 4 did not come next, right? It was this.
This was 97. Subspecies 4 was 98.
All right, so I am right. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to start this because I have a feeling you guys are going to argue with me.
Well, maybe.
This possibly is my favorite in this franchise.
What?
Now I had part 1 as my number 1, and this is kind of the number 2, but I kept going, man, I enjoyed it. I don't know if I was just, because again, this was homework at first, and I came to Vampire Journals, and by Vampire Journals, I was like, oh, fucking spinoffs are unnecessary. Why don't you just call it a sequel? If it's a sequel, it's a fucking sequel. It's not a spinoff. This isn't Golden Palace. This isn't Archie Bunker's Place. But this was a spinoff, and it was connected to the Subspecies, but it was its own movie, and I went into it, and I turned out liking it a lot. Like the plot, it kept a good pace. Of course, just like the other movies, it's still directed by the same guy, and it looks great. The new guy is cool, Ash, who kind of looks like Kory.
Yep.
And
that's funny because my wife says I look more like Radu, but
see, I think you look more like Ash than Ragu.
Depends on the day.
And then this new guy, Zachary, at first I thought he was going to be kind of a douche, but wasn't he one of the Volturi in Twilight? For those who have seen both movies. I don't mean Just the vampire himself. He just reminds me like, wasn't he one of those guys in the Volturi?
Yeah. I'm not an expert on Twilight, I was going to say.
It had a
Yeah,
cool opening. I'm just gonna, because I just got a couple notes. I'll
Mhm.
finish it off. Cool opening. All the heads off in this movie were really cool. The special effects. There's like, I think 3 different heads that got torn off, cut off, different scenes. So I just thought it was a lot of fun, and that's all I'm gonna say. And this possibly is my favorite Subspecies movie in the franchise.
I'm not going to argue with you over whether it's a good movie or not. Because I actually enjoy Vampire Journals. I think it's still within the subspecies world, but it's not subspecies itself. But the biggest knock on this movie for me is that Ash is not nearly on the same level as Radu.
No,
Well, he's very different.
he's very different, more likable in my opinion.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to like Radu. He's the bad guy.
I'm going to assume, Jess, that you're a fan of Anne Rice and the Vampire Chronicles.
I really am not.
Not
Some
the
of that shit
well,
kind of bores me.
maybe the movie, the books, the Vampire Chronicles books. In a lot of ways, this movie, while certainly being much lower budget, it's kind of a better adaptation in terms of the feel of the Vampire Chronicles than Interview with the Vampire or certainly Queen of the Damned. I mean, it's another one that might look kind of dated in terms of the just the visually, the look of the film. It doesn't feel cheap, and this is getting to that era of Full Moon. There you go. And this is getting to that era of Full Moon where the budget started to shrink a lot after Castle Freak in '95, which is a great movie. This has a lot that kind of almost connects to Vampire Chronicles, and also that Vampire Masquerade game. I've heard a lot of people compare it to that with the different vampire clans and everything. Ash is kind of similar to Marius in the Vampire Chronicles books, and Zachary kind of feels like Louis from Interview with the Vampire. So there's a lot of not crossover, but for fans of that, I think this movie plays very well. It's another one a lot of people haven't seen because it really wasn't pimped that hard as a Subspecies movie. Now, as we go along, of course, 4, but especially 5, these Vampire Journals characters really cross over. So this essentially becomes a Subspecies film in 2023 with Subspecies 5. But some people are going to dislike this one in the sense that it's very low on action, gore. This is more of an Anne Rice classic romanticism, kind of vampires more so than like a Blade, obviously, or even an Underworld.
God, you're making it sound so boring. I don't know how I like this the way you're talking.
No, that's a good thing. I mean, I was really happy seeing this again at that time. While it's not perfect, it did feel like a throwback. 90s, we really didn't get a lot of movies like this. Although we did have the vampire Anne Rice boom with Interview and stuff. But nice shirt indeed. Also, keep an eye out for Star Andreef, who plays Iris. Not a household name, but you'll recognize from many different movies. So yeah, I don't know. These are like the more sophisticated vampires, and for a lot of people, that's boring. I disagree. I like this movie quite a bit.
Just not more than part 1.
No, not more than that.
It was a tough decision. It really is. Part 1 could still be the number 1 of this franchise. I mean, it ranks up there with this Vampire Journals for me. I just enjoyed both of them.
Mm-hmm.
This one, I think I was expecting so little, and I had a good time with it. I enjoyed the plot. I guess I was probably into this one the most of them all. And Zombie thinks I've gone mad. He's, what the hell, Jess? Do I have a fever? Did I hit my head? And I don't know why Chris is talking about winter spice cranberry Sprite, but
he is right, though.
He likes it.
Yeah, those are actually some of the better diet drinks I've had. Very good flavor. So, gentlemen, I'm going to have to go in a few minutes. So, do you want me to?
I do kind of want you to speed. Was that everybody good on part 3?
Yeah.
And then we'll let Dan carry these next 2 and get his thoughts out, because we got
Love that
Subspecies 4,
poster.
Bloodstorm, and I didn't think this one was as well or as good a poster as the first 3 movies. But go on, Dan.
Sure. Yeah. So at this point, unfortunately, you really feel the budget drop. It's always, I love killing off legacy characters. I don't mind that at all, but they didn't really have money to get the actors back, so they just use a little footage from Subspecies 3, and it's like, oh, Mel and Rebecca are just dead. Car accident, dead. Let's move on. And I don't think it's as awful as its reputation, but this one is just a very big step down. We have Dr. Nicolescu, who kind of using science to keep the vampirism at bay, and of course hunting down the Bloodstone and what have you. It just doesn't feel like a proper swan song for the franchise, which of course it was for many years, and still is in the current timeline. I could dive into this one a little bit more, but again, didn't feel like a proper send off for Radu. It is definitive; he is dead at this point, but it's a much cheaper film, and it just felt like I almost wish it didn't exist.
Well, that was my biggest note that I had in mind for part 4, was it definitely felt a lot cheaper than the previous movies.
Oh, it was significantly cheaper. It's wild because it's not really that much time that passed. But I don't know. Vampire Journals was just a year before, and that one still felt like it had enough money to do what it needed to do. This just really felt like they were stretching to try and make this work. But it had the crossover with Vampire Journals. It broadens the Subspecies universe a little bit, and it has its moments, but I don't know of anybody that looks at 4 and says like, it's my favorite entry.
No, I hope not.
Last. Yeah,
it's one of the worst, maybe my second least favorite. Before we give Dan the table for 5, Kory, do you have any quick responses to his thoughts on 4?
No, not really. No, let's just go ahead and let Dan.
And then you and I can go back and chat after Dan, but I want to get all of Dan's thoughts. And were you done with 4, Dan?
Yeah. And I'm sorry I have to rush today. I've got the rest Squared Circle Society. Then I got like 2
S'mores and Doors. Aren't you going from one channel to the next?
Yeah, like 5 streams today. So sorry. I will say, if you want,
we're thankful you made it.
Oh no, I'm glad I could. As far as 5 goes, I will say we have a review on our channel of it from not that long ago if you want like a deeper dive. But so 5 is an origin story for Radu, and I love seeing, first off, Denise Duff playing Helena here. She's no longer the damsel in distress. She's kind of this seductive figure, and I thought, I really enjoyed seeing her in this. It's a fantastic origin story. Radu's really fleshed out well. Prequels, if you listen to a lot of our shows on Flesh Wound Features, prequels I usually have an issue with, because you know exactly already where these characters end up. So I was shocked with this. I didn't want another Subspecies movie from Full Moon. I did not think they could pull it off because the budgets shrink even after Subspecies 4 Bloodstorm. And at this point, I was like, I don't want to see them bringing Radu back and we're seeing a Subspecies movie in a warehouse or, something like that would just feel kind of lame. I would have rathered it just, die at that point, leave it where it's at. And surprisingly enough, this was a fantastic movie. They shot this in Serbia. And it has that same benefit of the early films where just the sets, the on location stuff, it's all beautiful. Just who would have thought the production values were insane? They put a lot of money into this one, and I adore this film. Again, I know I'm speeding through this one quick, but check out our review of it. It's not,
and which you'll be able to find Flesh Wound Features link in the description below, or just search them out. Flesh Wound Features. You're gonna have to come back over.
As soon as the stream is over, go over there, check out Squared Circle Society.
Yep, we're doing XPW, but then we're going to talk CM Punk and the War Game stuff at the end. So, gentlemen, I'm going to hop off, but it's been a pleasure.
Dan.
Later, guys. Dan.
We'll see you later.
Save the show, brother. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
All right. Well, I think
it's
Dan,
just the two of us.
This is weird. I think Dan, if he comes back and watches the end of it about him like praising the last film here, he's not gonna like my thoughts on it. But let's you and I step back real quick.
Well, let's go back one more.
You want to go to you didn't really get to talk too much about it, didn't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to point out a couple of small things. One was that Vampire Journals, while I agree with a lot of what Dan said, it still kind of follows that same formula from the Subspecies movies. It deals with a particular artifact or particular object. The Sword of Larites, or I might have fucked up the name there, but the sword that it plays prominently in the movie.
Well, he made it sound like it wasn't very action-packed, and maybe there was a little more.
It's really not.
But I don't know. Then the dialogue-driven scenes were better to me than some of the previous movies, or they felt like they flowed better, or were more entertaining to follow.
I'll agree with that. Yeah. The one thing about the Subspecies movies is that the dialogue does sound really campy.
Yeah,
I mean, you've got this badass vampire Radu who's saying "mommy." I mean,
mommy. Yes. There's moments like that, but I don't think it takes too much away from them. I don't know what else they've done because they are what they are too.
Yeah, I agree. It's just,
but yeah, we're on the.
You got him calling her mommy. I mean.
And this guy is just
maybe
so scary looking and badass, and he's calling. But she is an intimidating mummy.
She's like half his size.
But she's very intimidating. I like this. I don't know. Yeah, maybe true Subspecies fans, I could never, win their hearts over and say this is the best Subspecies film. But man, it's no less than number 2 for me.
I don't hate this movie at all. I really do enjoy it. And I agree with you that I think that the dialogue in this movie is so much better. And I think part of it could just be the fact that the story is enough to drive the movie as opposed to having a bunch of action scenes. So,
yeah.
But,
well, I've jerked this film off enough, I think.
Subspecies 4, Bloodstorm, or The Awakening, depending on.
I was gonna say this is, if you're looking for it, it'll come up as The Awakening on like Tubi, but it's Subspecies 4 Bloodstorm.
Yes. And this poster, the look on Radu's face, I believe, is actually from the end of part 3.
That makes sense.
So that great ending in part 3, because you can see where like the sunlight's hitting him
Yeah.
in the face. It just I
Which
love
again
that.
it was a cool scene. I don't think this poster is better than the first 3 posters. The first 3 movie posters. I just don't.
I like it. To me,
It's all right.
like it looks like it would be a heavy metal album cover. So it just it works for me. But
I don't hate it.
well, I'll go ahead and let you give your thoughts on 4 here.
I don't have a lot of thoughts. I said my big note with Dan here earlier. It definitely felt a big drop off in its budget right away. It was cheaper feeling. I don't know. Were they pumping this out? What year was this? Was this still pretty close to the
90, 98?
So yeah, Chris Slasher Home Video said the same thing as you did. Yeah, 98. I don't know. Like Dan said, they get cheaper. This one was obviously cheaper. I thought it was going to be my least favorite. And then I watched the last film, which I think you're going to argue with me too. Radu's death retcon at the beginning of the movie was a kind of a tad stretch to me. It was kind of like, it was worse than when they went back in Halloween 5. And it's like, no, he slipped out of the mine or whatever, or the well, and floated away in the river. That was kind of like, it shows you things that to me didn't really happen in part 3. He was toasted. He didn't just all of a sudden get out of the sun in just enough time. So I don't know. Maybe, I say this is, it was one of the weakest ones of the series for sure to me.
I agree that it's one of the weakest ones, but I love all of these movies. So to me, even with it being the weakest one, and honestly, I do feel it is the weakest one, but it's still watchable. It's still enjoyable. The guy who plays the doctor, I believe, also plays Dimitri in the Vampire Journals.
I wondered I knew some carried on later.
If it's not the same guy, he looks just like him. He's just got a little bit different haircut.
Well, I thought the lady playing, and I was wrong. I tried to look it up, but the lady playing Mummy played a different role in this one or the Vampire Journals, but I don't think I was correct on that. So is this isn't your least favorite, or it is your least favorite?
This is my least favorite.
Okay.
But that's like trying to rank your kids. You love them all, so
it's like me with my top slasher films. It's hard. I love them all. There are weaker ones, but you still love them.
Yeah,
you can watch them anytime. I don't need to see this again for the rest of my life, but it's not that bad. Again, if a group down the road, or we had a good night, is like, I really want to watch this, Jess. All right, we could have some fun with it.
Yeah. I do like the last shot of Radu, his head burning on a stake. I do like the fact that there was an ending to it, but it's a Subspecies movie. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the end.
Subspecies 6 could bring him back somehow in present.
I would love to have, do one more prequel, bring it up to where they were at with the first Subspecies.
Yeah.
Give me Subspecies 7, and I want to see Radu in America. Give me one movie with him in New York or Chicago or LA or
Radu
some
takes
big
Manhattan.
fuck yeah. Give me that. I want to see that. Denise Duff took the Bloodstone and went back to America, and now he's there trying to get it back.
Oh. I still got a few of the boys still here in the chat.
Thank you guys for sticking with us.
We appreciate it. I know it's one of our smallest rumbles ever. So thanks for hanging. I hope we've been entertaining enough. I know Dan was a big help. Any final thoughts on Subspecies 4, Bloodstorm?
No, I just just because they claimed it ended that way doesn't necessarily mean that's the end. So
Well, we know that with almost any horror that it doesn't have to, no matter what, it doesn't always have to be the end. Subspecies 5, Blood Rise.
all right, let's get into this, Jess, because
Let's really get into this. Is it bothering you I'm leaving these posters up? I'm just trying to be clear because we bounced around. I really thought I was good because this is a newer movie. This is the biggest gap from the previous entries, right?
Yeah.
This is actually made really recent.
Came out this year.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, and you got the guy back playing.
You're talking 25-year gap between Subspecies 4 and Subspecies 5.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know it was that big a gap.
Well, it's 2023.
Yeah, I guess. Oh. That's insane. Well, with that, I thought, okay, this is coming back. It's a modern tale. We're getting the same guy back. This is going to be really cool. And I thought I was going to like this better, at least than the last movie. But it turns out I didn't. It's my least favorite on the first viewing. And I don't know if it's because I was burnt out by now. I had to cram these last two in within the last 2 days. And the first 4, I was able to kind of pace myself. A few weeks back, I started. So maybe that was it. It was fatigue that I didn't enjoy this as much as maybe I should have. But as of right now, I thought, it's my weakest. I thought the ending was weak, even of this movie. So I don't know what, and maybe that's because it's a prequel as well. That a lot of times prequels, it has to at least end in a certain way because it's got a story that's already predetermined for it to happen after the fact. But I don't know. I felt bored. Like I said, my biggest note on this one is the ending was super weak to me, and I was probably fatigued. But you defend it. You defend it, my friend.
All right. Well, when I first heard that they were actually doing Subspecies 5 was when they announced that Full Moon was doing their Deadly 10. It was supposed to be, I believe, 10 movies in 10 months or some shit like that. And I was like, oh, this is going to be like it was back, when they first started and they were, releasing a new movie every month.
Pumping out.
Yeah. And so I was excited, but at the same time I was scared because I've seen the more recent Puppet Master movies. And especially the last Puppet Master movie they did was just unbelievably god awful, and I couldn't actually finish the movie. As a matter of fact, Dan had mentioned with the earlier Subspecies movies that they had filmed actors in suits playing the little subspecies demons.
Yeah.
And they were acting on large sets. And they had done that with Blade in the last Subspecies or last Puppet Master movie. And it just looked horrible. Like you could tell it was an actor in a suit. So I was a little scared for
a little
that.
nervous.
And then they released the trailer, and my nerves went away, and I got pumped because the trailer for this fucking movie is awesome. This fucking movie is awesome, and I
It's
don't.
not, though.
It very well could be the fact that you're comparing this movie to the more recent full moon movies that have come out. And the more recent full moon movies that have come out look like shit. This does not. This
I don't think that's
looks
the
like
reason.
an actual movie.
Yeah, I don't think I have any bad notes on how this definitely looks better than than Subspecies 4. This
No,
looks by far better. But everything else about it, to me, I don't know. It just didn't click. And I think I was going to say some of the full moons recently look really cool, but no, I was wrong. I'm thinking of like a couple of the remakes that weren't technically full moon.
oh, Puppet Master remake and Castle Freak.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, and I was
Yeah,
like,
those
look
aren't full
really
moon.
cool.
Those
Those
are
aren't, and then I was like, oh, those
Charles
aren't full
Charles
moon.
Band is a producer on those, but I believe it's just a in name only.
Yeah, it's
But
not his production company.
yeah, he this movie. Okay, and I know I'm going to be in the minority on this, and I'm cool with that. But, and I'm not trying to compare Subspecies to Star Wars. Okay, I get
You
there's
can't do that.
no, but I'm the type of person that I enjoyed the prequels because you heard about the story that led up to the movies you were watching with the original trilogy. So when you actually got to see what they were talking about in the original trilogy, to me, that's cool. When episode 3 came out and you got to see Obi-Wan and Anakin fighting, that was cool. And you got to see how he became Darth Vader. That is cool.
Cool.
So seeing
Okay, I get your
Radu,
point. I take that. I got to take it back, for giving you shit on that. No, I'm one of those who's, saw the original trilogy, of course, before the prequels.
yeah.
And you can't ever beat those. But I do love the prequels of Star
Well,
Wars. I love them too.
now I love these Subspecies movies, and I love the character Radu. I love the way he looks. I love damn near everything about this character. But to be able to go to the beginning and see his progression into becoming what he becomes, that's cool to me. I want to see that. So this movie does that. Does it do it in a way that seems like you're watching it in fast forward? Yeah.
Thanks, Zombie.
But you still get to see it. I mean, it may not be at the pace you want to see it at, but you still get to see it. And to me, that's cool. So I love this movie. I think it's great. And I agree with Dan. I think it was awesome that you got legacy actors coming back and playing different roles in this movie, because Denise Duff, as Dan said, plays Helena. And you actually get a line in there just before, and I don't want to give away too much in case people haven't seen this one, because
this
it
is
did
pretty
just
new,
come out
yeah.
this year. But where there's a line in there that connects the Helena character to the Michelle character later on. I think that that stuff is just a nice little touch to put into this movie. To have the guy who, and I'm horrible with names, but the guy who played Mel comes back and plays King Vladislaus in Subspecies 5. And I believe it's mainly because isn't Angus Scrimm dead?
Yeah.
Didn't he pass away recently or within the last couple of years?
Excuse me. I think so. And I didn't realize that was a legacy actor for some reason.
Yeah, it's the guy who played Mel in
Excuse me.
3 and 4. or
Because I thought
2 and
whoever
3.
did
I'm
that
sorry.
did a great job filling his role.
Yeah. The only and this is my only complaint is that they changed the look of the character, of that character. He looked more like a vampire from the Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV show than King Vladislaus from the first Subspecies.
Okay, fair enough.
But that might be my only complaint, my only major complaint about this movie.
Well, you heard it, folks. Coming from two hardcore fans of the series, it's hard to argue that Subspecies 5 is not a great comeback. Coming from a fair weather viewer or a first time viewer, I did not. It was my least favorite or second least favorite. 4 and 5 are at the end for me. And then 1 and Vampire Journals are at the top. And I thought 2 and 3 were all right. That's my sum of it all as my first time viewing. But again, to be fair, the last couple movies, might just because I was fatigued and forced in a time frame that I had to watch these. So,
well, let's also keep in mind that Subspecies 5 is like literally just over an hour long.
which
So,
I did like that. These movies are not overly long, so you can't complain that they drag too much, like a lot of movies today. Excuse me.
You gonna make it?
I am. I'm fine.
We're right here at the end, bud.
I know. But yeah, all in all, I didn't hate this franchise. I did enjoy it, and if somebody brought most of these movies up again down the road and wanted to watch it, I'd have no problem watching them again. Will I seek them out myself? Not next year, not in the next couple years, but maybe down the road again. I'll go, yeah, I haven't watched those in quite a while. I could go for those again.
I was just gonna say, I don't think right now you're gonna be like, yeah, I want to sit down and rewatch these. Maybe in 6 months, the urge might creep back up on you.
I don't know about 6 months.
I'm just saying,
a few years, maybe a couple years at least. You never know. You never know, though.
I'm just saying, it might creep back up on you, and
I'm a pretty good, I'm a vampire fan. So this is definitely, again, a must-see for any vampire fan. If you haven't seen these yet and you're itching for something you haven't seen before, a good vampire movie, this franchise is one to sink your teeth into. Pun intended. I think you do, Chris. And I'd love to know your thoughts. So, because it would be your first viewing, I assume, too. And short isn't bad. I kind of praise them for that. I mean, if you can tell your story in, an hour and a half or even slightly less,
5 minutes.
Let's do that. Don't drag on a movie just because you got to feel like you got to make a 2-hour longer movie these days like everybody else. Because a lot of those, the big Hollywood ones, I'm like, fuck. This movie would have been great if you cut 25 minutes out of it. I say that too much lately, but and I don't think it's just my attention span.
Well, there's an old saying, too. I mean, you're supposed to leave the audience wanting more.
And I don't think movies do that enough these days.
And I would agree with you.
Make me crave. That's how you should you're right. That's how you should always leave an audience. Make me want to see these characters again or know more, hear more of the story. Give me an ending, but leave us wanting more. And Chris says most of their properties are turning into series format. I mean, I feel like a lot of properties, not just Full Moon, are doing that. Do you mean like sort of almost like a TV series format?
I think what he's talking about is like they did Baby Oopsie, and they released it in 3 parts.
Oh, yeah. which
So
would kind of be like a mini series.
If you watch it, it's 90 minutes, but if you were to watch it all at once, it'd be like 90 minutes. But if you watch it as the parts as they come out, they'd be like 30 minutes long.
They do that on their streaming service, I assume.
I believe they've got it that way on Tubi.
Oh, interesting.
So I would assume that they might have it on their streaming service that way too.
So another comparison to even Star Wars again, or Chucky for that matter, but Star Wars even more. Switching from the theatrical format and releasing like Obi-Wan as a 6-part miniseries with no real plans to do a second season, but it's almost like a 6-episode movie.
Yeah.
If you put it together. And a lot of other things they're doing that too. So yeah, Chris says it's adding up to the streaming hours now, so that's how they're doing. Sons of bitches. But whatever. I mean, if you get more of something you're enjoying or love and they do it right.
Like Subspecies 5.
Yeah, well, no. But that's not, I was just saying, like, even doing it something as a series these days, it's a little different than what you would get on a Saturday night with Freddy's Nightmares or Friday the 13th back when we were kids. You're getting almost movie quality things in a series format. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. We need to end the show.
All right. Well, before we end, if you haven't, make sure you check out the last episode of Kory's Dead Time Gories we did.
Killer Babies, dude. Where are you people at?
Pet Cemetery. What
that was
what
our
are we
holiday
calling this?
special.
It's a holiday special, but is it a play? Are you calling it a cold read? I mean,
now this was Steak Sauce's vision. We just released it here, and I produced it, but it was Steak's idea originally was to go back to more of a radio play format, a live radio play reading. And he didn't want, like we did with the Christmas Carol, you see us on screen performing. It's still kind of a radio play, but we're performing on screen. We're not live on screen. We're not in person. There are stills up because it would, for the YouTube viewers, we figured it would get pretty boring just having one shot for an hour and a half up there, one screenshot. So there are kind of still pictures to go along with the story, mostly as a gag. But yeah, it's meant to be a radio play to listen to. Pet Cemetery.
And then check out our last Horror Rumble we did. We covered the entire Saw franchise.
Yeah, especially for October, Go check it out. And we got new stuff coming, more stuff coming. Horror Rumble should be back next month. And
we'll be back next month. We're doing Twilight next month.
And maybe, who knows, some sort of Christmas special on the channel, or who knows.
There's always something cooking.
And I thought we'd get another Kory's Dead Time Gory soon, but we'll see.
Well, we're working on it. It's like we said at the beginning of the show, it's been a very rough last couple of months. So we definitely got something working on. So outside of that,
thank Dan.
When you leave here, go over to Flesh Wound Features, check out Squared Circle Society, see our buddy Dan. And then after that, go over to S'mores Indoors later tonight. We're doing, I believe it's part 5.
Is this like the big end show of this Thanksgiving series?
I want to say it's like the last 164 person tournament.
So there should be like a determined champion for this.
And then later on tonight, we're supposed to be recording the final tournament. for Patreon.
Okay.
And that will be the one tonight is the PG rated one. But the one that they're recording for Patreon is R rated, I guess you could say. So, yeah,
Well, check it out. S'mores
check that
Indoors.
out. I mean, over on S'mores Indoors. So, with that, you got anything else you want to add, Jess?
I think we covered it all. Good show. Thanks everybody for watching.
Yes, thank you guys for watching.
Good night.
See you later.